On this second installment of When Wallets Fly, we've got the Su-7BMK. The Su-7BMK is a premium, rank 6, battle rating 9.3 strike aircraft for Russia, and this is the aircraft that I use to grind out every single top tier Russian aircraft. And to be honest, it's probably the easiest grind that I've had yet. Let's start with the armament of the Su-7BMK. It has two 30mm NR-30 cannons as its offensive armament, which are definitely adequate guns. It also has the ability to carry a respectable amount of bombs and rockets, which are part of the reason this thing is such an efficient grinding machine. The best way I've found to use the Su-7 is to make your bombing run and then become a fighter. You would be surprised at how well this plane does against other players, though it does require some careful gameplay and careful positioning before attacking a target, because it can be quite difficult to get guns on target sometimes. So how about the performance of the Su-7? Well, it's a bit weird. Remember my video on the MiG-19? Well, it's sort of similar to the performance of the MiG-19, except scaled up. Now let me explain what exactly I mean by that. So the MiG-19 is a fantastic vertical fighter, and so is the Su-7. Obviously, the Su-7 is a big, bulky, and really heavy strike aircraft, and not really supposed to be a dogfighter. When you make passes on your targets, you're going to want to extend away from them for a bit longer than you would with the MiG-19 due to your worse maneuverability. Luckily for the Su-7, it's got a ton of engine power, allowing for crazy quick getaways in a climb, not to mention its solid energy retention. It quite literally feels like a MiG-19, just much larger and twice as heavy. And because it feels like a giant MiG-19, I think that's why I kinda took a liking to it. Alright, so a couple of things I've noticed with the Su-7. It can be quite difficult to get your guns on target sometimes, and that's precisely because this aircraft is big and heavy. Sometimes it feels like you don't really have that much control over the nose direction of this thing, and it definitely prevents me from getting kills I normally would in any other aircraft. But luckily, since this thing is so fast and has such a powerful engine, you can get away from a bad situation pretty quickly. However, if you do manage to lose your speed in a game and you have enemies around, you're probably a dead man. Which, that's kind of going to lead me into what I mentioned a second ago, and that is positioning. You are going to want to pay attention to your surroundings pretty attentively with this aircraft, especially since it seems like more and more there are much better missiles at lower battle ratings, specifically when you get an up tier. You will be going against lots of A-10s with AIM-9Ls in this thing, which, if you pay attention, that's not really a problem at all. You just have to be sure that you are not going to put your afterburner in front of the nose of an A-10 so an AIM-9L won't be fired at you because you don't have flares. I guess this is also sort of related to positioning, but when you're making your initial bombing run, if you choose to do so, you are going to want to go for a base that is a bit off track of where you think the enemies will be flying. Each team's runway aren't pointed directly at each other, they are slightly offset. So if the opposing team's runway is facing to the right, you're going to want to go for the base that's on the left. This will significantly reduce the chance of you running into a whole bunch of enemies trying to go head on with you. And because of all the premium aircraft at this battle rating and the relatively high amount of low-level players in high-tier aircraft, this happens a lot. So, when I'm grinding through the tech tree in this aircraft, I do just about what everybody else does in the beginning and go for a base run. Now, the difference between what I do versus what a lot of other players do is that I go fighter mode as soon as I get those bombs off, comparing that to what most players would do, which would be going back to base and getting more bombs to make another run. So immediately after dropping the bombs, I start heading towards where I think the furball will begin. Or actually, I go more behind where I think the furball will begin to sort of get a flank around the enemy team. And a lot of the time, this catches a lot of people off guard, especially in a down tier, because in a down tier, you're going against 90% subsonics anyway. And some may find this a little dirty, but I go after the players that are going after AI a lot of the time, which a lot of the time happens to be premium A10s. And when I'm trying to grind, I'm trying to get as many player kills as possible because that's going to give me more research than doing just about anything else. A normal game usually looks like a base run and 1, 2, 3 kills. It's rare I get more than that. It has happened. I've got a 5 or I think I've got a 6 kill game a couple times in this thing, but that was also a while ago when this thing still had an air spawn. Oh, and speaking of which, I actually planned on making this video quite a while ago, but in the middle of making the video, War Thunder got an update, and the Su-7 no longer had an air spawn in the middle of me making the video, so I completely scrapped the whole thing and said, screw it, I'll just do it later, so that's what I'm doing now. Now, after getting a ground spawn on the runway just like everybody else, I tend to not really get those higher kill games very much, but I can still come out with, 1 or 2 kills like I said. And 1 or 2 kills with a base run is gonna get you a very solid amount of research points. Especially since at this battle rating, games seem to go by pretty quickly. Okay, now let's get into a match. So this game is basically the optimal result of a match in the SU-7. So far all I've done is drop all my bombs on a base, and now I've got my sights set on an A-10 who isn't paying attention. Okay, now that the A-10 is dead, I'm going to make my way towards this F-11. F-11 is going to take it into the vertical, and against the SU-7 that is not what you want to do. So he's going to be my second kill. And then the next 5 minutes are spent trying to bait out an A-4 that was camping their airfield. Eventually, he does come out though, and he is going to be my third kill. And that's going to be that. 3 kills in the Su-7BMK, and a base run is going to amount to some solid research points. Games like this happen pretty regularly. And worst case scenario, you get your bombs off and you die, which is still getting you research. Which is part of the reason I chose this aircraft to grind out rank 7 Russia with. And it definitely was not an impulse purchase at all. Definitely not, no way. I would never do such a thing. Definitely did not spend $60 on this, nah, that's not me. Alright, so I guess to summarize how I grinded out rank 7 Russia with this aircraft, my strategy consisted of bombing a base, and then trying to get as many kills as possible. And then before I knew it, I had the MiG-23 MLD, all the MiG-27s, and all the MiG-21s, whatever. Except the MiG-21 Biz, I'm still working on that. Okay, today's video is a bit shorter than normal for an aircraft review, but I still feel I conveyed all the information that I needed to. So I'm going to let you guys go with that. If you enjoyed this video, press that like button and subscribe if you want to see more. And on that note, I will see you guys next time. Peace.